Bob lives on his own. He likes his life to be peaceful and quiet. He has a routine. Every day, he meditates for an hour after work. Then he cooks a healthy meal and watches an episode of The Gardening Show on television. Finally, he listens to classical music and goes to sleep. One day, Bob cooks a tuna steak. Soon it is ready to eat. He sits down and picks up the knife and fork. Then he hears a sound, a soft tap. Someone is at his door. It's very unusual. All his neighbors know that Bob likes to be alone. Bob gets up and opens the door. As soon as the door is open, something small runs inside. Bob sees that it is a kitten. The kitten sits on Bob's chair. "Get out," says Bob. He runs towards the kitten. He tries to catch it, but the kitten is too quick. It jumps around like a grasshopper. Now it is on top of the fridge. Then it is under the sofa, in the sink, on his bed. Bob chases the kitten everywhere. Eventually, Bob is sweating. He sits down and eats his tuna steak. The kitten comes and sits on the table in front of him. Bob looks at the kitten. It is thin and it has only one ear. It has ginger fur and big, bright eyes. "Fine," Bob says. He cuts a piece of the tuna steak and gives it to the kitten. The kitten eats it with delight. Several months later, Bob arrives home in the evening. "Welcome to my flat," he says. He is speaking to a woman. She comes inside with him. "This is a lovely flat," the woman says. "Do you have flatmates, or do you live alone?" "Not exactly alone," says Bob. Two cats come to meet them. Bob kneels down and strokes them. They purr. One of them has black fur and the other has ginger fur. Then 8 kittens run towards them. They all meow at once. They're hungry. "What are their names?" asks the woman. The meowing is so loud she almost has to shout. "This one is called Peace," he says loudly, stroking the black cat. "And this one is called Quiet." He strokes the ginger cat. The woman sees that it has only one ear.
The relationship between the United States and Iran is considered one of the most tense relationships in contemporary international politics. Since the Islamic Revolution in 1979, Iran shifted from being an ally of Washington to becoming a strategic rival. Since then, crises have continued between the two countries through economic sanctions, accusations related to Iran's nuclear program, and indirect conflicts in several Middle Eastern countries. For decades, the conflict took the form of a regional Cold War based on economic pressure and indirect support for local allies, without reaching a full-scale military confrontation. However, Tensions increased whenever negotiations over the Iranian nuclear file stalled and whenever Iran's regional influence expanded, which Washington viewed as a threat to its interests and those of its allies.
In late February 2026, the conflict entered a new and dangerous phase when the United States, in coordination with Israel, launched wide military strikes targeting military and strategic sites inside Iran. This marked a major shift in the nature of the confrontation. Events were no longer limited to indirect operations, but became declared and direct strikes on Iranian territory. Iran responded by launching missiles and drones toward military targets in Israel and bases hosting American forces in the region. As a result, clashes expanded and casualties occurred on both sides. As the exchange of strikes continued, the confrontation did not remain confined to Iran and Israel, but extended to other areas in the Middle East, where allied parties on each side became involved in the conflict. Tensions also escalated in the Gulf region, and threats emerged regarding the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important maritime routes for global oil transportation. This development had a direct impact on the global economy, as oil prices rose and fears increased over disruptions in supply chains and energy markets. At the same time, the United States strengthened its military presence in the region, while Iran declared its readiness to continue responding to any further attacks.
This war raised widespread concern within the international community as several countries and organizations called for restraint and a ceasefire, fearing that the conflict could turn into a broader regional war that might draw in other international powers. Continued escalation could lead to long-term instability in the Middle East and affect international peace and security. In light of these developments, the war between the United States and Iran represents the most dangerous phase in the history of their conflict in decades, due to its wide military, economic, and political dimensions that may extend far beyond the borders of the region.